Okay. How do you want me to dissect this one?
Israelites are purportedly enslaved in Egypt. Now, we'll set aside the fact that archaeological studies can find no good evidence to support the idea that these two cultures ever coexisted, and, you know, it's not like shared words and languages.
No evidence of them exchanging culture or language. Well, that's already been proven wrong. I mean, that's wrong right out of the gate. I mean, we got lots of Egyptian loanwords, so they did swap at least some language. And the swap went both ways. We do find actually some Canaanite words, Semitic words, in Egypt, like edut, that comes into the reign of Ramses III. We also have yams for sea. That's the Semitic word for sea, as in a large body of water. You know, so that's not true right out of the gate.
We can ignore some of the numbers that are presented in there, that during the Exodus there were over 600,000 men over the age of 20, which talks about a population of roughly 2 million people at a time when the entire population of Egypt was maybe 3 or 3.5 million people.
And now, as far as the counts of Israelites, now that's one of the most controversial topics inside of biblical studies. You know, everyone's got an opinion on this. And, you know, you've got people saying, you know, biblical scholars that believe in an Exodus, and even early daters, who will say, well, we can't take those numbers literally. Right. We can take the 480 literally, but we can't take the numbers of Exodus literally, of the numbers literally. You know, Bryant Wood is an example of this. He takes that 480 years literally, but he doesn't take the numbers in of the census literally.
Right.
So he's picking and choosing here, but he's not alone here. You know, a lot of biblical scholars, in fact, most biblical scholars will say that the amount of people that left during the Exodus is in the 5 figures, between 10 and 50,000.
Gotcha.
Now, I tend to lean more towards in the low to mid 6 figures. But I'm approaching this from differently. I'm not looking at, say, the text here. I'm looking at the archaeology and the demographics of the region. The city of Arbour was a big city. It was 250 hectares. And if you look at, say, a similar, say, Semitic settlement like Lahun, where the demographics are very well known, you discover that you have about 800 people per hectare there. So that's the population density at Lahun. So if you apply that same sort of population density to Avaris, you do get something in the low 6 figures. And plus, they're also going through Pithom and Sukkot, where they're picking up additional Semitic populations. So by the time they actually leave, I think they're in the 6 figures.
And yet, there aren't recordings of it. The Egyptians don't seem to have noticed, just like they didn't seem to notice the flood.
Okay. The second thing is that there is this myth that sort of prevails, say, atheism, that we have all these massive records from Egypt. Well, the fact is we actually have very, very few records. What we have is a lot of religious texts, religious inscriptions. Those are highly cleaned up because what they are is religious texts are offerings to the gods. You know, the last thing you want to do is present your failures to the gods. That's generally a bad thing in any religion. You know, you don't present as an offering to your gods your biggest failures. You know, just like you don't present the spotted lamb to Yahweh. You know, so, you know, this idea that we have all these records of Egypt. The fact is, of all the reigns of all the kings of Egypt, we only have the court records of one 15-year segment of history and only partial records. And that's from the Amarna period. Because we find a scriptorium at Amarna that has all these diplomatic correspondence written on clay tablets, written in Akkadian. But we don't have, say, the Egyptian counterparts to those tablets, the papyrus. They're all lost. So if you have an Exodus, where are you going to find those records if they had written them down? You'd find them at a scriptorium at Paramses on papyrus. Paramses is very wet. You're not going to find any papyrus there.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
In fact, the preservation of documents is so bad in the Nile Delta that we've only found about 24 documents from the entire delta. Almost all the documents we find are from Upper Egypt. And again, none of them come from a scriptorium. None of them come from the royal court. So, you know, he's patently wrong here that we're going to find lots, because it's just the archaeological record is not preserved in that way. It's just silly.
Thanks for being here with us so long, actually. It's really...
Oh, I enjoyed this.
Time. Yeah, we really appreciate your time, honestly.